This is a production of Gordon College's Scott Radio.
Scott Radio.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the debut episode of The Ben Schneider Show. We've got a great guest for you today. It's my roommate, military trainee, Shane Seekamp. Shane, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ben. It's an honor to be your first guest. When Ben Schneider taps you to be the first guest on his new show, you know that you've done something right. So I'm honored to be your first guest. So thank you, sir.
Great to have you on. What do you think of the studio, man?
I think it's beautiful. I think I got to be in here a little more, and I will be, especially with a new show that I have coming out called The Pentagon Hour. I'll be talking about military affairs, generals, and war. So if you're interested in that, Gordon College has never seen anything like it, and that will be premiering on Friday at 8.
So, I know you're my roommate. I already know you a little bit better than most people on campus anyway, but I still want to ask you the basics. You're living in Virginia now.
Yes, sir.
That's a fairly recent move, if I
recent.
understand that right.
June
But you-
27th, yep.
Sure, yeah. But you grew up in Connecticut. So I want to ask you, what's the Connecticut life like compared to your new home in Virginia? And also, if you want to compare that to living on the North Shore here at college.
Yeah, so Virginia is much more rural. Connecticut was somewhat more populated and much more fast-paced. Virginia is not that. And I already love it much more. I don't miss Connecticut at all. I'm sorry for the Connecticut folk.
Why is that?
I think Virginia is a slower paced community. Certainly, I feel like it's a more Christian community. They might call it the Bible Belt. That's certainly been a term that's used for it. I think it's accurate. You just go down there and there's just massive amounts of churches and faith-based communities, and I think that that's really important. I didn't get that in Connecticut. But up here on the North Shore, I think that we're having, like for instance, at the church that I go to, I know that they're trying to branch out a little more and have more of a faith presence. I think that's important, so I applaud that.
Yeah, sure. I know the New England area is not as strong in in the faith overall as the South is. So I certainly understand where you're coming from there. So what led you to Gordon? What other schools were you considering, but ultimately what made you settle here?
So I was considering a couple colleges, and when I was doing this, I wanted to stay close to Connecticut because I'm very close to my family, and Massachusetts and Connecticut are very close.
Yeah.
I wanted a Christian-based education, especially because I wanted to go into political science, and I wanted to have a faith-based lens, especially for that field.
That's your major, correct?
That's my major.
Yeah.
So long story short, you get into college and you realize you don't want to do political science anymore because you fall in love with something called the military. I had come in and I had dreams of, political jobs. I must admit, even the presidency. But it all just fell away kind of when I got into my new niche and just kind of working in with that and meeting a lot of new people that were passionate about what they were doing, and being part of something that's bigger than yourself, a team. That was really attractive to me. But you asked about why Gordon. It's harder for me now that my family has moved south. But I am planning on going back down there, and I'll be with my brother, hopefully, at Liberty University. Once I graduate here, I want to get a master's in divinity and pursue military chaplaincy.
You want to do that at Liberty?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it'll be good to be back with my brother. And just be back in Virginia because, like I said, I think I prefer a little more to New England.
Yeah. A little bit warmer weather, too.
Absolutely, yeah.
For sure. So, military, main
Yeah.
reason I brought you on here. Has this been a childhood dream of yours, or is this
Not
something
at all.
you got into later in life?
So, growing up, absolutely no desire to be in the military whatsoever.
Really?
I actually, maybe despise might be a good word.
Wow. So what changed?
So, I'll tell you the whole story. So, growing up, I had always wanted to be in the FBI. I was going to be a federal kind of agent. And my brother was always interested in the military, particularly the Navy SEALs. So we would grow up and we would, we kind of had similar interests because they're very similar. But it changed for me when I was in high school, more about my senior year. And I began to have a huge interest in politics, particularly defense policy. So I became really interested in military affairs, military strategy, missile defense, these kinds of things. So I was already beginning to develop a niche within my political interests. kind of like Pentagon stuff. And that senior year of high school, I was trying to get scholarships, and I made a speech for the veterans of foreign wars. I was trying to get money, I confess. And I made a speech, and I lost the competition. But they said to me and 2 other people, come in anyway. We're going to write you a check for $50, and we're going to present it in front of the veterans. Great. So I put on a suit that night. I think it was March of my senior year. So school was going to be over in about 3 months. And I accepted the award, and we were back there with the veterans, and they're talking about ROTC. They said, yeah, you could go do this. You could do some military training. Be pretty cool. I'm saying to myself, wow, I think that would be. So that night, I went home. I'll never forget it. My mom and I turned on the O'Reilly Factor. That was still a show then. And I'm looking up MIT ROTC. I'm saying, I think I'm going to do this. So pretty soon thereafter, I submitted, you have to submit a swath of paperwork.
I'm sure.
To the recruiting officer. Got to get medically cleared, so forth. By the end of that summer, I had done all the paperwork. I guess you could say I was ahead of the game. And by the first month of my freshman year, I was a cadet in Army ROTC. And I will say it has been a huge challenge in some ways, but it's been probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. So I'm really happy I chose to do it.
So is your title right now Cadet Seekamp?
Cadet Sergeant First Class.
Nice.
Yep. So.
Yeah, so I know you're gone every Wednesday night. You're off at MIT doing ROTC or ROTC.
Mm-hmm.
So what all are you doing there? What keeps you there so late at night?
Yeah, so I'm basically there for about 7 hours.
Wow.
So
7 hours.
For the juniors, it begins to get real. The freshman and sophomore year, there's not a commitment required. At the junior level, it's expected that you're going to enter the military after, and you need to start becoming proficient and competent in what you're doing. And I think this is important to talk to people about, because if anyone is interested in this, when you graduate college and you become a second lieutenant, you become a platoon leader, PL. And at the age of 21, 22, you take command of about 40 to 44 troops in an infantry unit, a signal, all these different kinds of MOSs. So it's critical that they train you so that you're competent and you understand military doctrine, you understand how to lead people, and things like that. And that's what we're doing. So the first 3 hours, I have a military science class. We get operational orders, and we have to go through briefing them to a wider team. We have to go through making tactical plans, a lot of things that are associated with leading troops, and how that looks on our side, because that's what ROTC is. It's learning how to be a leader. ROTC is the #1 biggest leadership program that the U.S. has to offer. And our program is a really good program. We have really good cadre. And I just have to plug for it because since 1916, we have produced about 150 general officers or admirals. So that's pretty big. We deal with Harvard, Tufts, Wellesley, MIT, Gordon, Endicott, and Salem. All of them are wonderful cadets. I've had a great experience with all of them. When I first came into the program, we had a battalion commander from Endicott who has since graduated Ranger School. Ranger School is the absolute pinnacle of tactical proficiency in the Army. If you could pass Ranger, you understand the Army and you kind of have a place in it for many years to come. So we have a really good program, and part of that is because we use that time, all those hours on those Wednesdays, in just becoming tactically proficient and proficient in understanding how to lead people, understand battle drills, on and on.
So, does ROTC involve any physical training, PT?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, tell me about that.
So,
you get up, what is it, 5 a.m.
Yeah.
3 times a week,
Mm-hmm.
every week?
Yeah.
What?
It's a lot.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
I've got one 6 a.m. practice that I got to
Mm-hmm.
make every week, and it's tough for me to get up, and I have to remind myself to go to bed early Sunday nights so that I can be alert and
Mm-hmm.
awake for that.
It's it's honestly the grace of God. Sometimes I wake up in those mornings and say, I can't believe I'm still here. I can't believe I've made it this far. I think you've heard me say that. I know that it's important. And when you go and you do these physical fitness things, it's called PT. It's for an hour every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And you basically get with the larger group and you push yourselves and you challenge yourselves physically. So this is the physical component. And leadership plays into this because it's cadet-led. We aren't given a program from a member of, a cadre, like a master sergeant or a captain. We actually have cadets lead this. So we go and we do various different exercises. I know right now it's pretty big because the Army's pushing out a new PT test. They're scrapping the test that we've had since 1980, which consists of 3 events, the push-up, the sit-up, and the 2-mile run. Now it's a 6-event test, and it's much more combat intensive. It's supposed to try to get cadets ready for combat tasks. And it's much more rigorous and hard. So they're trying to get us more in the weight room. They're trying to get us to build up like pull-up like capability and things like that. And I think this is kind of new, and they're trying to really run us through this as much as they can because our standing, our careers actually depend on it.
So what happens if a cadet doesn't meet the threshold?
That's a great question. If I were to fail about 3 PT tests, the Army would say, it's been nice knowing you, but I think you need to leave now.
Wow.
So
they don't mess around.
They don't. And when you contract, you sign a form, you're obligated to pass PT tests. So I think for my standard, a 20-year-old male, 42 push-up minimum, 53 sit-up, and a 2-mile run, 15:56. If you can do that, you've passed the test. It's not ideal because we want you to be doing much more than pass. But if you can't do those things, you get so if your contract, you fail once, you'll probably get spoken to. Fail it again, it's probably going to be maybe a write-up. The 3rd time, you might be shown the door. And that's how serious it is. So they don't mess with that.
Yeah, so it's one of the most important aspects of your training,
yes.
I guess.
Yep.
So, I don't know, did you play any sports in high school? Did you do anything physical?
Not at all. I didn't do anything physical in high school. I hated gym. We had to do gym class, and every day in high school I wore a suit and a tie to school. And I'll never forget my gym teacher, who I negotiated with so I could keep some of it on because it's actually a hassle to take off to change for gym. I said, can I keep my shirt and tie on and I'll change into gym shorts? And will that be a good deal? I put on sneakers as well. And she said, sure. And we had a school resource police officer there that knew me and was actually pulling for me as well. So
you didn't even take the tie off?
No, I didn't. And I regulated my body so I wouldn't sweat, so I wasn't participating. And then it's just incredible because then you're in this program where you absolutely need to perform physically.
How did you go from not taking your tie off for gym class to where you are now?
It's called failed PT tests. So I got in.
Did you fail?
Oh yeah. Well,
wow.
When you're
tell me about that.
Incoming MS1, there's no pressure to pass unless you're contracted. It's when you contract that those kind of strict regimens kick in.
So is this like your freshman year?
This is freshman year. So I was failing those. I mean, I wouldn't say that I was a sedentary person in high school, but I didn't participate in gym. I had no interest in it. Never played a high school sport. So coming into it was challenging physically. And this is what PT does. When you are so persistent in doing this 3 times a week for an hour, you build up your capability. And the Army is very good about providing people to help you like when you're not at PT. So I've done a couple of remedial sessions to get back into where I should be. And then that really helped me, and now I'm passing them. So it's good news.
Were you a shirt and tie guy every day in high school?
Absolutely.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I remember I walked into driver's ed class
mm-hmm.
on it was a week-long program.
Yeah.
And some kid came in a shirt and tie on Monday, and I was just like, you know what?
Yeah.
Good for you, man.
Yeah.
I definitely respect that. I don't do that every day myself, but I don't know. Maybe I should start doing that more often.
You would look good. You would look good.
Yeah.
You got a couple nice suits.
Yeah. So you're a full-time college student too.
Yeah.
I know I play a sport and extracurricular stuff, so I'm keeping myself busy enough. But how in the world do you balance all of your military commitments while also being a full-time college student?
It's probably the hardest part of college. And it's hard because you have to balance many different kind of people. The cadet Seekamp and the college student Shane, you have to balance that out. And honestly, the ROTC can begin to be to the point where it's actually a part-time job. And that's certainly how I feel about it right now, especially at the junior level, where they're really, like, they treat us as a second lieutenant now, because that's what is going to be required of us in about 18 months. So it can be difficult to, try to get your homework done in time so you could go to bed at a decent hour and then wake up early enough to do the PT. It's hard when you lose a whole Wednesday night in the middle of the week. But these are things that you learn to navigate over the years. And God has just been so faithful, and He's helped me do it. So I can't complain.
Yeah. How many credits are you taking right now?
16.
16?
Yeah.
That's a pretty full load. So you're a poli-sci major. I assume you're taking at least one or two of those classes. So what's your academic schedule look like right now?
Yeah, so I do about 2 classes on each day except for Monday. So I'll do, I think on Wednesday I have to do 2 classes, and then I'll go to lunch and then right to MIT. Thursday, Friday, it's generally a 2 course load kind of day where I'll just do 2, and then I have time to do homework and catch up and do whatever I need to do for ROTC, or if I have to help someone in a remedial PT, I can do that. But that's generally where I am right now in terms of the academic schedule. It works out good. I can't complain.
Yeah. You do anything else on campus, or
no?
I would think not, with how much time the military takes. Although I guess you're doing radio now.
Yes, sir.
That's gonna be interesting.
Yes, it will.
So what do you want to do with your degree? Where do you see yourself down the road? And I assume you want to go into the military pretty much right out of college. What's your intended career path look like?
So once I leave this school, if everything works out, I should be a chaplain candidate in the Army. The Army requires that I get a master's in divinity before I can pursue that, which means that I cannot go on active duty when I leave here. I'm going to go to Liberty University, hopefully, this is the plan, and join my brother, and I'm going to get a master's of divinity there. And then after that, I'd like to transfer on to active duty, and then serve this country as a chaplain with an infantry unit. I'd like to be attached to combat arms. That'd be my preference. And I'd like to get deployed.
You looked at Gordon Conwell at all? I know nobody excites you. But...
Yeah. I think part of my little enthusiasm for it at this point is the fact that my family is so far away.
Sure.
I'm very close to them, and I would prefer to be closer to them as I, pursue this higher degree, and especially with the military responsibilities I'll have probably as a reservist at that time. It'd just be better for me to be with my family.
Yeah. That was one of my criteria too when I was looking for colleges. Is like, it didn't even have to be my immediate family. Like I've got my grandparents down in Florida. I've got cousins out in California. I want to be close to somebody.
Yeah.
So I can get from Boston back home to Delaware in a day. This is about as far as I would have liked to come, because I'm very close to my family.
Sure.
So it'd be hard to be away from them for that long. So I just want to let you kind of fire away here. I'm sure you've got plenty of political and military opinions. I don't know. It's all stuff that isn't really up my alley. But what do you think of President Trump and the military situation that it's in today?
Yeah.
Or what are your opinions on all that?
So before I say anything, I am mandated to say that anything I do say does not reflect the policies of the president or the Department of Defense.
Of course, absolutely.
So I'm going kind of on my own opinion now. I'll just say that I think President Trump has been really good for the military, and I applaud him for what he's done. No president in the history of our country has given the military more money than President Trump. And I think that it's important to remember that actually can be helpful to college students. I've heard it said that when the defense budget is higher, college students have more potential to earn an ROTC scholarship, which pays for school. That's incredibly helpful, and I don't think that people think of that when they think of the defense budget.
So I take it you're very much in favor of increased military spending.
I am. And you just look at our world that we're living in, where we have enemies on all sides, And I was reading an article in Foreign Affairs by General David Petraeus. He was basically saying that the U.S. military is in a situation where it has to defend itself on all different fronts. That costs a lot of money. And this is not the case for our adversaries, whereas China and Russia can be offensive and kind of conduct proxy wars or build military bases or conduct military activities. The United States has to defend itself against these things on all fronts, and that naturally takes a lot of money. So I think the military budget is important. I'm a huge believer that it should be well funded, and I honestly think that it affects more people than others realize that it actually does.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to get into specifics if you don't want to. I try to stay away from as much as possible myself, especially these days with how polarizing it all is. But among you and your peers, is there a general consensus? People feel the same way about, the job President Trump's done, or him in general?
Yeah, that's a tough one. President Trump is a pretty polarizing individual. Some people approve of certain things that he does. They don't approve of his personality. And I would just generally say that I'm one of those people that is a supporter of the policies, of the vision of where the country should go. I don't support the behavior or the tweeting. I think that's immature. But as opposed to other candidates, I endorse that vision more. And, there's more in that than just the military. I think he's been good for the military. And then, in the beginning, we had generals come into the cabinet since they've left. But I think that he's been really well for our country in that way. And I just think it's important to give credit where it's due.
Any of the Democratic 2020 candidates' military plans excite you?
No. I think that the Democratic vision in terms of the military is not as... Well, let me put it like this. I think the Republican Party in general has a better track record for military than the Democratic Party does. The Democratic Party is more leaning towards resolving things within diplomatic realms. I endorse it and support it 100%. I think there has to be a realization, though, that with some of the things that we're dealing with, you need to have a force posture that can back up what you're trying to say diplomatically. I'm 100% in terms of diplomacy. General Jim Mattis used to say that let's hope that our diplomats can do their job successfully so we don't have to come in and do something as a result of it failing. And I think he's right. If you look at the strategic landscape of our world, though, I think there has to be a realization that there is power competition and there is instances where countries have been very aggressive. And I'm just saying this as a broad statement. I think that the Republican Party is a little more eager to exert that military muscle that I don't believe that the Democratic Party is. And I think that that's important, even if it's just exerting that. When I was at MIT, I think November of last year, we were with the 4-star commander of STRATCOM, Strategic Command. It's a 4-star general. And he was basically saying that the goal of STRATCOM, which deals with intercontinental ballistic missiles, the nuclear arsenal, he's the top nuclear general of the United States. The motto of STRATCOM is peace is our profession, ... And I think that's important. I think that as a country, peace should be our profession. There's a biblical mandate for that, and I believe in it. But I think that ... is important for our adversaries, that they know that there is a line to which if you cross, there will be a response. And I think that any responsible country would make that known.
So I know there are 5 branches of the military.
Yeah.
Are you looking at the Army route?
Yes, sir.
I suppose?
Yep.
Is there a particular reason that's the place you decided to go?
I kind of have a stock answer for this kind of question. For the Navy, I get seasick. For the Air Force, I can get scared of heights. And for the Marine Corps, I can't do enough pull-ups. So I guess the Army fits. That's kind of been my stock answer for everyone that's asked that.
That one for the Coast Guard?
I can't say that I'm interested in the Coast Guard. I respect their work. Our country wouldn't be what it is without them. But I'm more interested in the land component, land wars and land battles. and just having a force on the ground. I think that's kind of what I'm more interested in than kind of naval or oceanic kind of warfare.
Yeah, well, since I opened this can of worms, I guess, talking about the 5 branches, I've heard this term Space Force
Yes.
in recent years. I don't know a ton about it. I don't know how much progress has been made, if the whole thing's a hoax, or if they're actually serious about making this a legit 6th branch. So, as much as you know, with the position that you're in, tell me about what you think of the idea, if it's necessary, if it's not.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
So President Trump has activated U.S. Space Command. That is a combatant command. That is different than an actual arm of the United States military. In my opinion, at this time, it should stay at Space Command. What is a combatant command? The United States military has taken the globe and they've divided it into about 10 different commands. They're called combatant commands. So you have NORTHCOM, you have SOUTHCOM, you have CENTCOM, you have PACOM, you have EUCOM, on and on and on. And basically what this is the United States military saying, for these different geographic spheres, we're going to have one 4-star commander be almost a theater commander. And if you're at CENTCOM, you're in charge of all military operations in the AO of Central Command. AO stands for, or I should say AOR, Area of Responsibility. This is what is now with Space Command. It's a combatant command that has been activated to deal with U.S. military operations as they pertain to space. This is a new realm of war. It is important. It should not be overlooked. And I agree with the president, and I believe that there is support among the top brass at the Pentagon for this, because our adversaries are now in space. And wars are going to be fought moving into the future with the space component. So having a U.S. presence there is important, because if we lose that realm, then we could be losing in terms of the technological advantage that our adversaries could hold over us. So.
Yeah. Well, I guess I want to ask you if you were around in the 60s when we were in the space battle with the Russians and everything, and I know JFK said he wanted to put a man on the moon by the end of the decade, which we did. What do you think you would have thought of all that going on at that time?
Space Command probably wouldn't have been very important in the 1960s. I think that it was before its time, and if you look at where warfare is going now, it's much more important just because of the role technology plays. So if you look at, different things that are being done with space or in that kind of cyber realm, the U.S. military has basically said, okay, we see a need here. Let's have this command. I think President Trump was right to say we need something to deal with space because it's going to be important for the multi-domain warfare that we're going to be seeing as we move on into the 21st century.
Do you think we should go to Mars?
No, not at the time. I think that's probably money that we can't afford to spend. In the future, maybe. But at this time, I would say that probably Space Command is enough. And you could leave it at that. But that's just my opinion.
Do you see a purpose for a trip out there down the road?
Maybe down the road. It would be, in my eyes at this time, my prediction would be to counter the Russians and the Chinese. Those two countries.
I know there's talk about trying to actually colonize it and have people permanently move out there. What do you think of that?
I haven't looked into it too much. I would never want to go. I think that Earth is probably the best place for me. It's actually quite a beautiful planet, probably compared to Mars.
I think most people would tend to agree.
Yes, but I guess there are some people that are just very eager and are willing to leave our world at that point. I just wish them the best. I think it's probably pretty dusty. And if you don't mind getting your clothes dirty, then go ahead.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. I feel like we've got enough problems with our own planet right now. Let's try to sort those out maybe before we try to go explore somewhere else. Yeah, so you a big football fan at all?
I don't know anything about it.
You don't know anything about
Nothing.
Do you watch the Army Navy games?
Nope, not even that.
Well, do you have a rooting interest at all? I mean, I guess you have to say Army, right?
I am mandated to say the Army. Yeah.
You're mandated to say the Army, but in terms of the actual game, you wouldn't know.
I don't know.
You know what
Not at all.
I assume you at least know what a touchdown is, right?
I would hope.
Well, let me see. I'll put you on the spot here. What do you? How would you describe what's a touchdown? How would you answer that?
Someone made a very successful move with the football.
Well, you're not wrong, I guess.
Yeah.
Are you just not much of a sports guy in general?
I've never been.
Is there a reason for that?
I just never got into it. When I was younger, I played soccer. I think I even did baseball when I was a little boy. But like just watching sports, I never really got into it. I was always more interested in the crime shows. So things like FBI kind of things is what I wanted to do when I was a boy.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I was always more geared towards that kind of stuff. I just never got into sports. So.
Are you more of a scripted entertainment, I guess?
I guess so. Yeah, I'm really interested in documentary films and
sure. Yeah. I love those.
Yeah, things about history or real life events or battles or wars. I love that stuff.
Well, before I ask you some final thoughts, I don't know, do you have anything else you want to talk about in regards to you or the military? Any opinions you want to share?
Yeah, I just want to say that I know that there are people on this campus that are in the military. I know that there's a couple of cadets in ROTC for the Air Force. I know we have a couple of Marine Corps people that are not cadets. They're actually in the Marine Corps, and they're serving right now. I just want to say I thank all of them. They inspire me, and I'm just encouraged that we have a little bit more of a military presence than we used to, because I think that kind of having that can kind of show the civilian world that, hey, maybe this might be something I want to pursue. This might be worth going into, and that encourages me. So
you like what you see here at Gordon?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
that's great. Well, yeah, so if somebody came to you and said, hey, I love what you're doing, I'm interested in maybe getting involved myself, or, I'm praying to God about what I should do if I'm feeling called to do this, what advice would you have for anybody interested in the program or anything that you're up to right now?
I would say that the best thing that you could do is faithfully pray about it, but make sure that you could fit it in your schedule. It's very demanding, it's very rewarding, and it gets you ready for a job that you're going to step into right when you graduate. But it's something that you have to be committed to. I think if you're not committed to it, it's not going to work. So that would probably be the best advice that I can give someone. Just making sure that they've discussed it with their family, and because the family serves too. It's not just the soldier. The family probably can even at times serve more than the soldier himself. So it's something that I think should be considered in a familial realm, and that'd just be the advice that I'd give. I think that's important.
Have you ever felt that way yourself? Like you just woke up one morning and say, I don't want to go.
Oh,
do
yeah.
This. What am I doing here?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
How much mental strength does that take to overcome that and keep going?
Well, I think if you don't show up, then the cadet that is higher ranking than you will probably make you look bad, and you'll be pretty embarrassed when you show up to the next event because they care enough about you to not let that go. So there are consequences to things. If you don't show up, then that ultimately says that everyone else can come, but you're too lazy to, and you kind of make a fool of yourself. So that's kind of something that motivates you to go. There's a larger team effort. We're going to do it together. So let's just go. Let's wake up and let's get there and let's get it done. So.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to end on.
Yeah.
Even giving your advice for
yes, sir.
Anybody listening who might be interested in this. Yeah, definitely give Shane's show a listen.
Yes,
if
please.
you get a chance. Shane, if you want to go ahead and plug that one more time.
Yeah, we're going to have the Pentagon Hour. It's going to be about military events, current affairs, and that will be on Friday at 8 p.m. So tune in and check it out.
You plan to have any guests on to talk about some stuff?
Not decided yet. If I do get one, it will be a surprise for Friday night.
Oh, all right, man. Well, appreciate having you on.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ben.
Appreciate you telling your story.
Thank you.
Giving advice to
Absolutely.
Potential future cadets who might be listening to this.
Absolutely.
And yeah, everybody, thank you for listening. For now, I'm Ben Schneider. We'll see you next time. Shane, thanks again for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ben.
Have a good night, everybody.